how did his allusions evoke like ethos and pathos?
Alright, so I'm gonna start on 221.
Okay.
Where it says, "But more basically, I'm in Birmingham because I'm just as here, just as the prophets of the 8th century left their villages." And he's talking about how all the apostles went and carried Christianity. He's kind of like helping to build both this ethos as like, yeah, I'm just like this, these early Christian movements that like I'm a part of that his audience believes in. And so he's saying like, this is a just purpose because they believe that's like
he's almost
of the utmost justice.
He's almost like challenging his criticizers to like also criticize the apostles in the Bible and the prophets in the same way that they're criticizing him, which I feel like that alludes to pathos because, I mean, if you were Christian and you really believed the Bible, like you would care about the people that he's making allusions to, like him comparing himself to Jesus. I mean, that would absolutely evoke like emotion in somebody reading this that was a strict Christian, thinking about God. I mean,
yeah, and trying to get them to like care as much about the civil rights movement as they are assumed to care about like
the Christian
movement. Yeah.
From a long time ago.
And then when you said he was talking about referring to himself as Jesus, I believe there's another quote where, on 231, when he's talking about like, was not Jesus an extremist? When he's talking about the
he's comparing himself to all of these previous like religious scholars and theologians, or not scholars, but
like Martin Luther, Jesus, all those people, just both helping develop the ethos of like, I have the same authority as these guys do have in their time.
Yeah, like listen to me, hear me. This is why you should hear me. So he uses all these different.
He lists all of these names in response to criticisms made about the civil rights movement being too violent or him being like called an extremist. It's like he lists this catalog of people that would be likely well known or at least known in his audience of like, Christian Americans, and especially the clergymen that he's responding to would know who all of these people are. And he's responding to the criticism about him being called an extremist, and he's like, all of these people are extremists. They all had just movements. They made the world better because of their movement. And it's like every time he's criticized, he's responding with a catalog of allusions, and I mean, he uses like anaphora here to just show how much history is on his side for like to rise like this.
And so that like help extends to the purpose of all these allusions, if they're all helping to answer questions or answer criticisms that other people bring upon it. He's using all these to like back up his claims and show why he is in the right and why everyone else who writes criticisms against him or just has like racist laws in general are against what he's going for.
And like back on 228, where he's responding to criticism about him saying that like his actions precipitate violence, like that non-violence will lead to violence. I mean, and yet again, he's criticized and he responds with making an allusion to Socrates and making an analogy with, the robber being, rewarded for stealing, right? Yeah, isn't this like condemning a robber because his possession of money precipitated the evil act of robbery? It's like the criticisms against him aren't logical or valid.
Yeah.
So he's alluding to these characters is almost like you can't really criticize me without criticizing all these other people.
And he even relates that to Jesus when the quote carries on to 229, saying like, isn't this like condemning Jesus, who like, if his audience is like all Christian, then they're like, oh, I would never do that, so why would I be condemned?
The way that he links Christianity to the civil rights movement is like, it's exactly what's getting the audience to agree with him, because there's so many, and during this time, there's just so many Christians, so it's like, oh yeah, if he's relating himself to this, then okay, then it's, his actions are proving like, this is what I'm saying is credible enough for you to believe.
He's building pathos and ethos, like comparing himself to Jesus. That's a lot of ethos,
Yeah.
Obviously, and then also that would invoke like huge emotion. These Christians that are reading this, it's like, okay, you're criticizing me for precipitating violence. You're also gonna have to criticize God, or I mean Jesus, for the violence that he precipitated from the Christian movement.
Yeah.
It's like calling to question their beliefs and what they really know.
And like he doesn't even do it just once, it's like multiple times, like
Yeah,
over the entire
every
course
time
of the
he's-
letter, just reinforcing that letter with all these prophets and
Yeah, every time
biblical
he's
characters and
criticized.
such.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's, yeah, and every single time he gets criticized, he makes an allusion to a prophet that would be well known, or a biblical figure, or a theologian, and yeah, it helps build his argument. What else is on here? Where he's king for his allusions to religious authority. I mean, he alludes to the religious authority figures to build credibility with the church as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of his movement, is like the reason he's in Birmingham in the first place is because he was responding to a call from the organizational ties he has with his church.
And I mean, like, it might also, like, help build more ethos over the clergymen that he's responding to, because the
directly,
clergymen
yeah.
are supposed to be, like, in a high place, or, like, held
Have
in
a lot
high
of religious
regards, but,
authority,
like,
yeah.
if he refers to someone who's in even higher regards, like the old prophets and such, like,
Yeah, he's
those are just held
diminishing,
in
yeah,
even higher regards, that
Yes.
helps him, like,
diminishing their arguments down.
yeah.
I mean, he does it like multiple times. I feel like there's another section where he has like a catalog of names after the was not enough, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like on, like there was something on 234. Wait, like what were you talking about when you were mentioning the illusions on 234?
234.
Yeah.
Let's see. Talking about seeing let's see. Oh yeah, when it's talking about how in the middle of the page, when saying there was a time when the church was powerful, and then whenever early Christians entered a town, the people in power became disturbed and immediately sought to convict the Christians.
Right.
And so he is saying that's a direct comparison to exactly what's happening in America.
Oh yeah, he's again comparing the civil rights movement to the entire Christian movement.
Right. And that's appealing to more than just
The clergyman.
the clergymen, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
It broadens his argument.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and even showing like at that time how powerful the Christian movement was, and saying like our movement can be of this size eventually
Yeah.
if you just understand.
Because
What
this
are
is early
taking
on
the-
in the civil rights movement. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then on 225, he also makes reference to other other higher theologians like St. Augustine and St. Thomas
Mhm.
Aquinas to like help back his philosophies of just laws versus unjust laws, so not just backing the movement itself, but also backing the specific points that he tries to make.
Yeah, I mean, and yet again, he's responding to a criticism of their entire civil rights movement being unjust in these protests. And again, he's making an allusion to St. Augustine responding to these criticisms.
Yeah.
Responding to criticisms.
Yeah, and even helping to show that he shares like exact philosophies with them.
Yeah, he's building pathos.
Okay, so he also, another way that he builds pathos is like the anaphora he uses throughout the text, like on 233. He says, I felt, multiple, like and he uses that a lot. And he also uses, I have on 235. The way that he uses these words that refer to him build on the,
His ethos.
yes.
Because he's saying that he has direct experience
right,
with the
and that's
problems,
what the audience, that's what gets them to agree with him and side with him, which is really, it's powerful the way that he does that, because it also just, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a lot. But
Right,
all of his allusions appeal to, I mean, he's obviously giving himself credibility, but like, I mean, if you were a Christian and you were reading this letter and you didn't know a lot about the civil rights movement, or you thought that it was like just a bunch of violent rioters or protesters, and you know, he's comparing himself to Jesus and a bunch of other prophets, I feel like that would totally make you empathetic to the movement as a whole.
right, yes,
Because he's building sympathy and empathy for the injustice being done in America to African Americans,
Mm-hmm.
while also building himself up above the clergymen that are responding, and he's like dwindling their entire argument.
He's doing right by Christians and by the civil rights movement at the same time.